So I will just take 2 minutes to introduce myself. I'm María González. I'm the Chief Community Engagement Manager of Spain. What we do at Endeavor Spain, I don't know if you're familiar with us, but we are a non-profit organization. We support entrepreneurs who are scaling up their companies. And what we do is give them access and support via services. Those services are mainly access to talent, capital, and markets. And actually, some of the people here in the panel are Endeavor entrepreneurs, so they can tell you a little bit more about it afterward. And I will let them introduce themselves.
Well, I'm Eloi Gómez. I'm also an Endeavor entrepreneur. Glad to be. I'm the founder and CEO of Mr. Jeff. Mr. Jeff is today a laundry service, and tomorrow we hope to be a service for your daily basis. We're in 25 countries. We are 450 people, all of them based, 500 today.
Wow.
All of them based in Valencia. We have more than 18,000 franchises enabled by our platform.
Amazing, thank you.
We wash clothes, huh?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Amanda Simmons, and I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Spotter Home. Spotter Home is a platform that connects tenants and landlords. So we list landlords that have properties to rent for mid to long term. So over a month, and there's no high end, really, like as long as you like. Yeah, and I've been at the company for just 5 months, so.
Pretty new.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Albert Nieto. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Seedtag. Seedtag is an advertising technology company that basically transforms all the pictures in the web into premium advertising inventory for brands. We are 130 people at the moment. We are in 7 markets. We are doing around 30 million in revenues. We are profitable. And our next big challenge as a company is opening in the US that we will do next year.
Hi, I'm Francisco Sierra, Director of European Markets of N26. N26 is the first global mobile bank. It was founded in 2013. And it was founded as a fintech and obtained a banking license to operate all across Europe in 2016. Since then, and until now, we've grown to 3.5 million customers. We've raised $670 million, and we have 1,400 employees across 5 different geographies, where our headquarters are in Berlin, but we also have offices in New York, Barcelona, Vienna, and Sao Paulo.
Thank you all. So actually, my next question was going to be, how do you define hypergrowth in your own companies? You kind of just mentioned it, because I was going to ask about talent, how many people are there in your companies, markets, revenues, and funding. So you just said it. Let's leave the 3 others, starting by you.
Well, so we are 500 people, 25 or 26 countries, not sure, because we are opening. And about revenues, we will close the year with more than 40 million.
Okay.
So we are almost doing 4 to 5x this year. And this was the only question, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is hypergrowth for you in terms of it?
Well, it's a good question. For us, about when you know that you are going too fast, but you know how to do it. So you can't control it really well, but you know the main KPIs, and you can keep controlling the direction of the company. Yeah.
So Spotter Home has, we've raised $72 million in total, and we're 300-ish employees. And we have, our biggest office is, an HQ is Madrid, but we have a second HQ, if you will, in London, where we're about 40, 50 people and growing. And then we've just opened 6 other hubs across Europe. So our COO comes from Uber. We're doing the Uber model, GM in each city. So yeah, so we have GMs we have 7 GMs, and we've opened 6 other hubs. Yeah, and the definition of hypergrowth, I guess, like for us, like I think we've been growing really fast and not being able to know exactly why. You know, like that's like where we are. So we know we're like poised for growth and it's happening. And the stage where we're at is putting all the foundational data and systems in place and like structuring like the processes a little bit more so that we can get more of that insights to like really know what's driving what. Like we've got the key KPIs, and it's like actually going deeper into the data is the stage that we're at to be able to measure what's driving what exactly.
I will ask you more about that.
Okay.
later, for sure.
Yeah, I think hypergrowth is when you feel that you are in a kind of a controlled chaos. There is a kind of a magic figure that is when you are doubling up in many of your metrics. So revenues, headcount, typically more than double up in terms of offices and locations. I think a difference between Seedtag and my panel colleagues today is that we've managed to do that with a limited amount of funding because we've raised 5.2 million so far, which creates a mentality of become capital efficient because basically you don't have the funds to keep investing super quickly. So we have to take care of top line, but also bottom line when we are financing our growth. And I think this is just a different mindset when you try to do it this way.
So for N26, hypergrowth, I guess it's at a different stage because I joined actually when we were a few more than 200 employees, and we had 55 million investment. So I'm, I would say, the second step. And during these 2 years that I've been with the company, we went from 300 to 1,400, right? So employees. So what I've seen is strong focus on customer growth that have come with growth in all directions. First of all, identifying new market opportunities and launching in the US, trying to launch Brazil in the next coming year as well. So looking at how can we actually attack a bigger market share just by moving to other markets. The second piece is actually how can we launch new features, new products, new services, and we walk in that direction as well. And the third piece is also, from a licensing point of view and a regulated entity, is like, what else, or I mean, how can we actually set up the right systems and the right control? And so hypergrowth would be growth in all directions. Focus is the main challenge. What not to do and what to choose in terms of your priorities. And I would say also that the biggest challenge after that is, well, the biggest challenge we've had over the last 2 years is how do we grow the team and maintain their culture, but having, I would say, as flat as possible, a horizontal organization, because as you grow, you need to put middle management in place. And that's a very difficult decision because it very much affects the culture of the company, right?
I think it's brilliant today that we have 2 founders and then 2 people who came to the company and joined the business once it was already professionalizing. So I like the mix of perspectives. I'm going to ask the same question, but I hope to hear very different things. So how did you guys know that your company was entering hypergrowth, and what did you start doing internally to manage it? And the same for you guys, that once you enter, what did you do to help the company with that hypergrowth?
Want to
You want to start?
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I touched on it, but like what we really are doing to like help us win in the hypergrowth stage is like setting up it in a way that doesn't slow things down, more processes. So as we expand to more offices and as we get like more people on board and we're empowering the local teams, then we want them to be creative and to come up with lots of ideas and to like be like a startup on the ground. At the same time, we need to tie all the budget together. We need to have ROI. We need to hit certain contribution margins. So it's like actually putting the structure in place that's not too restrictive, but sort of just helps actually like continue to fuel the growth, but with some sort of like barriers in place. So that's like I feel like the stage that we're at. I think previously, like we've just been, as with probably most startups, I imagine, like just like, okay, let's just do it. Let's just do this. Let's just do that. And everyone can't just do what comes to mind when you get to a certain size. And I think we're at that size where we just have to, the communication flow is improving. We have weekly all hands, which is super helpful, especially because we have multiple offices now. And we're very clear on what the most important, like as you mentioned, focus, what the focus is. Like for this quarter, like we've just written our OKRs actually, so we use OKRs. And what are our OKRs for this quarter, for Q4? What do we need to focus on? And so like putting that cascading structure in place helps keep everybody aligned, and that's super important or we feel it's super important when we get to this stage.
You mentioned before something about the growth machine, right? Like that is your task right now. You have to be, you need to build the growth machine.
Yeah, we've coined it like we're building a growth machine. So like the growth machine to us is actually taking a step back and saying, okay, like on our PPC, how are we doing this? We've been doing it, like our PPCs, like our SEM, our paid marketing, one of the biggest channels we have. And we've been estimating how much budget to put behind it and setting limits for our campaigns of how much we want to spend and making sure we don't go over those limits. So we're trying to do an effective ROI. But instead, we're actually going to switch the model now. We're in the process of working out how to switch to a ROAS model within PPC, which means that the Google bidding algorithm can automatically, if we don't have budget limits, we're moving away from thinking we only want to spend this budget. We actually want to spend as much as we can as long as we're getting it back. Right? And that's the skyrocket. So building out the systems that allow us to do that, having all the data automated and in one place so that we can do that, so we can build the daily reports that we need that serve the entire business. That's like our growth machine that we're building. I was in a big meeting about it this morning, and like we're actually in the thick of like, and like for Q4, it's one of our key focuses. And you know, we've been doing fine. We've been getting decent returns, but it's just the level of, like the level of automation hasn't been there. And so we're
systems and
that
data as a basis for the growth.
Yeah, the real foundations for that growth. And it means like changing our attribution model, other things as well, potentially. But, you know, we're still always on the top line, be able to see where we're heading in the year on year, but just that attribution between channels will change as well. It's a step that, like, you know, it has consequences, but I think we're going to take it because it's the right thing for the growth.
Does that speak to any of your experiences?
Yeah, I would take a different approach, talking a little bit more about our early days. I think a common mistake that some entrepreneurs does and some companies is try to scale too early. I think it's stupid to try to scale before finding product market fit. Because basically, what it does is it's gonna just increase the amount of investment that you need to put in, and it will incorporate geographical complexity for you to validate the hypothesis that you need to validate before scaling. So in our case, what we decided to do is first, we wanted to be global from day one, but what we did is, okay, let's use Spain as a test market, and once we have a product market fit in Spain, once we have unit economics that make sense in Spain, then we invest heavily to scale and we go and open offices. We started in Italy, France, and Mexico, but of course you can decide to start by any other market. But if there are entrepreneurs in the audience, I think a classical mistake is to try to be as quick as possible scaling. And I think it's a good piece of advice not to do it before you are ready to do that, which is basically finding product market fit and having unit economics that make sense. At least it's what we did.
What you did.
I would like to repeat what Amanda just said about OKRs. At N26, we have yearly OKRs, quarterly, monthly, and even weekly OKRs per team. And that's the only way to actually be aligned as a big organization. Having said that, one of the biggest challenges as you're growing and with all those OKRs and how to scale them or how to actually cascade them down to all the other members of the team or the members of the company, you realize that you have your teams very much focused on recruiting and hiring, and which is, as you're scaling, as you're growing, you need to hire a lot of people, and you have part of your team that should be 200% focused on the actual company and the actual business and the growth of the business, focusing on onboarding and getting new people. And that is actually, you lose time there and you lose time to market in that process. So it's very important to actually make sure that you put the right balance on how big or how fast you can actually start hiring without hampering or damaging the existing business. And having said that, as you're hiring, you need to make sure that you hire people that are 100% flexible and 100% adaptable to changes, because I've been through 4 different companies every 6 months. No, it's changed massively, so I think And I have to subscribe to product market fit. However, speed is so important. So there's always that balance as well, trying to be fast and then arrive to the markets where the opportunity is still available.
Sure. In my perspective as founder, the biggest thing is when you start to think, at the beginning it's about, I have a problem, how to solve it. Then is, how is going to solve it? Sorry, who is going to solve it? So it's completely change of mind. So sometimes you know the solution, but you just wait, try to help him. Maybe it's the right way or not. It's really difficult because you know the solution, but you have to give them time to start to solve their own problems. And for me, it's the biggest challenge that we had. And also about what you mentioned about the onboarding. So it's difficult to balance between being the daily business strategy and onboarding the new people. So other thing that helps us a lot is we have a big training team inside of the organization, working with all the management levels and also with, in our case, in sales, we have a lot of hiring last month. So we have a big training team just onboarding all the salespeople. So we are not doing shadowing as in the beginning. That is the easiest way is to train people. We have a team that train new people. So also a good suggestion for the future.
Both of you have touched already on people. Let's talk about talent. Let's jump to that. What are you guys looking for in whenever you need to hire? What is the key essential aspect that it's going to make sure that it's a good fit?
Well, it's really difficult to be good at hiring. At least I'm not good at hiring. I think it's about ownership. You look for humble people and also for angry people, people who wants to learn. If you have these three things, you can always make it. And also flexibility is really important at the beginning, but try to handle also emotions. So people who understand, but maybe I'm not promoting this year, but you can wait for next year. So people who understand the dynamics of the business is really challenging for us. So looking for people who has ownership, but also a global understanding of the company and the ecosystem and how the things used to work.
So you have figured out that that is the profile that also is not only good for the moment that you hire them, but grows with the company, I guess.
Yes, we have people who start with us as trainee, and now one of is managing 150 people.
Wow.
His first job.
In how long?
3 years.
Not bad.
So it's awesome.
Yeah.
But this guy is unique. We are really lucky. But the good point is that he has been with us for a long time. So he's really flexible. He understands. He's always learning. And he's really humble. He's always saying, okay, if you find the other guy better than me, no problem, just hire him. So he's the perfect guy.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. I'm in love.
I agree with. We need that guy.
Don't take him.
No, break your heart.
He has to keep opening markets.
But I mean, I agree with the attributes that you said. Yeah, for me, the best people I've hired in the past career and like here at Spotahome, the people we're hiring are people with a thirst for learning, like real curiosity and just a need to better themselves. And so they're not there for the money necessarily, you know, like they're there because they want the challenge. They're inspired by a mission. They get excited by the learning curve, you know, because there's so much change, and that's the flexibility as well. But it's like you can view it as like, oh, there's so much change, or oh wow, cool, I'm learning so much at such a rate, you know, and that sort of attitude it ties into the hunger thing that you said as well, the hunger to learn and just advance and be better, but also with humility. So it's not like the big ego and like I did all this. It's you know, the humility that there's so much to learn, that they're adding value, and we're all doing it together as well, and that there's no perfect way as well. Like
Yes.
you know,
You have to be as little as good to make it, but not too much good to just become an idiot. So it's difficult.
It's a balance.
Yeah, it's a balance.
Yeah,
Even for us. Yeah.
yeah, but
Brilliant.
maybe.
Yeah, for us, I think when companies are scaling, you need people. You feel that you need more people in your team. So the temptation that you have as a founder is to hire fast and fire slow. And we learned that we need to do exactly the opposite. So you need to hire slow and take a lot of care of which kind of people you bring into the company, and fire fast, which is one of the things that you typically learn the hard way to do. But that it's very important. When someone is not a good fit for your company, you need to act as quickly as possible. In terms of which kind of skills we look for, we found that one of the skills that we need is people who get things done, who make things happen. And this is very difficult to identify in interviews because people is mainly in the UK, in the US, that we are starting now, is super good at passing interviews. So it's very complicated. It's very complicated to identify if you are these kind of people. But it's the one that we found the most correlated with success inside Seedtag. So if you are the classical people's manager, you will not be successful working with us. It might change when we are
that size.
their size. Maybe with 1,000 people, you need people managers. In our size, that we are 130, we are still looking for doers that what they are passionate about is to see the actual impact of their work.
So no people pleasing, just doing, executing.
Yeah, so yeah, to people who is good at transforming the reality from when they start in the company and when they, after 6 months, you see that their impact is massive. This is the people that we look for.
Perfect. You guys are also hiring very fast, so what
Very
did
fast.
you look for?
So at N26, a year ago, we had 500 employees, and now we have 1,400. So that means nearly 1,000 people in the last year.
How you do it?
How do you do it, right?
Why do you do it? So one of the main challenges is actually that culture fit, right? Because obviously the culture evolves. You need to admit that you need to accept that there's going to be a change in the organization and that people are going to behave differently because there's more people coming. And obviously your onboarding process actually professionalizes over time and you can be faster. Not only the onboarding, but the recruiting process, right? How do you do interviews? How do you actually filter candidates? And how do you are still strict and be very professional and trying to find those specific candidates, those specific roles that you need to fit in and those specific candidates, right? So I think I said the culture changes, but what you need to try to stick to is the values that you had at the beginning, right? And from very early on, we defined 4 values, which were simplicity, integrity, drive, and excellence. And we can evaluate that during the process of the interviews, and we very much check certain boxes to make sure that our candidates, our new joiners, actually meet those requirements. And obviously, there's this probation period where you still check and evaluate in order to meet what Albert was saying. I think that's also very relevant. You need to be able to know very fast that you have the right people in place, or either move them or let them go.
So you mentioned culture, not only specific talents, but also culture. Do you also guys have a mindset, a culture that you're validating during interviews?
Yes, but we are not really good. No, we try many things. We keep improving. I think that we have to fire fast, but I think most of the time it's a problem also of the onboarding expectations. And so we are trying to work more on the grading table about what we expect from different profiles and different positions, what they should deliver, is this aligned with the OKRs or not, and how are we going to train them?
Right.
Because 90% of our cases, it's not a problem of the candidate or the employee, it was our problem. Yeah. So we are now much more focused in the other part, more than in the interview.
So that makes a lot of sense, actually. I mean, like, sometimes it's not only when you are going out hiring people, do you analyze also what you're offering?
Well, it took us 4 years. So
right.
maybe it's obvious, but for us, it was not.
No, from your experience, now it makes sense, I guess. Yeah.
like many things.
What about you guys in Spotahome?
I think on the culture side, we are changing. So like I think it's noticeable. Like so we were just Madrid, and then with the opening of London and the opening of the other offices, like we're bringing different people in. We're introducing leveling frameworks like within the whole org, which wasn't there before, and like sort of putting that extra structure around it. And we're just getting, I think we're like skilling up in general, like the level of analytics, the level of the way we do things. So at one point we were like just taking, like people to work, we just need doers, and we are getting to that point, I think, where we need to look at like, who are we? We have a list of values, but we have 8. So it's quite a lot, like, of values. So I think at some point we'll be doing like some culture work around like, getting to like a bit like a branding exercise, like, call like what's the essence of who we are really, right. Like that, like, we call ourselves spotters, but like what is a spotter? Like what does that mean? Like, so there's still, and so I think it's mixing up. We've got subcultures. We've hired a lot of people from Uber, or we've got a lot of people, like we've got subcultures coming in.
Your own culture, right?
Like, yeah, there's a lot of change happening. So like, I think there's more we can do around our culture and making sure, and like owning it and defining it better. Like, yeah.
Are you doing anything around culture in Seedtag?
Yeah, I think every founder and every company thinks a lot about culture, values, mission statement, etc. In my personal view, culture, there are 2 kinds of company cultures, basically. One is the culture of fear of loss, and the other is the culture of opportunity. And the companies that have this fear of loss culture, it means that they already have a very big business, and that their #1 goal basically is to protect this business and to make it grow. If you have this kind of culture, it's super difficult to embrace hypergrowth because you are very concerned on protecting what you have. In our case, and I think it's still the case for all the companies in the panel, we are totally in the opportunity mindset. And I think this is one of the biggest competitive advantage that we have when we go against more traditional companies and trying to disrupt them. That basically we try to work in small groups with a very defined challenge. We encourage our teams to take calculated risk, to catch the opportunity as quickly as possible and move on to the next challenge. And this is the kind of mindset that we work, which is totally different from the other kind of companies.
The more established ones. Brilliant. The other aspect that is totally related or correlated with hypergrowth is opening new geographies, right? All of you are in that process. Let's start with you. I'm sorry, you're the closest one.
Well, we just opened now Southeast Asia. And we're going to close the year with almost 35 countries. In our model, it's kind of easy to launch countries. It's not that difficult because we have just 1 office. We are all of the team in Valencia, so it's much easier. And we use third parties to operate. So now we are really focused on Southeast Asia. We think there's a huge opportunity there.
How did you evaluate that opportunity? Sorry. It's like Asia is not a typical country for a Spanish company to expand, right?
Well, we are looking for big cities in the emerging markets because we're seeing a huge opportunity on these unbanked people between 20 to 40 with convenience as something that they really love or they give value to them. So we focus on that kind of cities and markets.
You're starting with Philippines, and then how many other countries?
Well, we already launched Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand. Yeah, we launched all of them. So.
How many in Asia already?
250, 300,
cities?
Yeah. No, shops. So
Shops.
And about cities, roughly 20, yeah.
Okay.
But for us, it's easy. No, it's not.
So you say it's easy. I doubt it. I mean, like, but how does it help that you have everything centralized in Valencia and then opening cities? Is like, does it mean that in Valencia the team has to grow? How does it operations-wise?
It's difficult to hire people because we have to bring all of them to Valencia.
Right.
But it's really cool because we are, I don't know, maybe 20% of the people is from Spain, 80% is international. So when we are operating, for example, in Indonesia, we have Indonesian people from Valencia working for Indonesia. Really? In the marketing team, in the product team, in the people team, everywhere. So it's like a Babel Tower all together working. So the feeling and the atmosphere is completely international. So I think it adds a lot of, it prevents from the cultural perspective a lot of future problems that could happen because we feel that we were not ready to open like 6 hubs or 7 hubs, but we were ready to mix all of them in Valencia. And the cool thing is that most of them just moved to Valencia to work with us.
Right.
So this creates a sense of family. So they spend a lot of time together. They know each other earlier. So, well, we're trying to create something cool.
That's brilliant. What about you guys? Spot home.
Yeah, I think there's pros and so we've been expanding through like opening the new offices, and there's pros and cons, right? See the time.
It's okay. we can finish this question and then we'll go.
I'll be quick. I think one of the core challenges with opening up all the offices is this balance between what we centralize and localize. We want to empower local teams, and there's a clear advantage to being local as well. Like the people on the ground know the markets the best and everything. So, but then centralizing like the core marketing things or like, you know, other operations processes. So yeah, I think it's about getting the balance, and we're looking to expand into lots of other cities, and ours is like, do we go into other cities within the countries we're already in? Probably, and then which other countries do we go, you know, like that sort of thing. So we're evaluating.
One sentence. We're running over one sentence each.
We will open the US next year.
We are in 26 countries, 24 in Europe, including the UK, also Switzerland, even though it's very small. It's actually very important to be there as a bank. And then we just launched the US. So from Europe, we do it from Berlin. In the US, we've actually built our own New York office. And also we'll launch Brazil next year.
Thank you, guys. I would be talking to you for hours, but time's up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.